Hi everyone, I'm John Coverdale, and I have another step-by-step video for students in CIS 1A. In today's video, we will complete SIMnet project Access in Practice Chapter 1 Guided Project 1-2. This project will introduce you to Microsoft Access. Access is a database, and databases are the hidden software that makes modern life possible, and we use them throughout the day. Modern databases evolved to replace the paper-based filing systems of the past. What that means is that historically, businesses, government offices, and other organizations used paper records stored in folders, stored in file cabinets. That was the standard method for managing information before the advent of digital technology. People completed paper forms by hand for all kinds of tasks, everything from job applications to shipping manifests to medical records. In file cabinets, every piece of paper represents a record, which could be anything from a transaction receipt to a client's contact information. Now, as organizations grew and the volume of data increased, managing these paper records became increasingly cumbersome and inefficient. Finding a particular document could involve sifting through hundreds of files, which was time-consuming and prone to error. Also, paper records are vulnerable to physical damage like fire, water, or simply deteriorating over time. As computers became widely available, paper filing systems were replaced by relational databases. In a relational database, data is stored in table formats, kind of like a spreadsheet, and managed through a language called Structured Query Language, or SQL or SQL. This language allows for complex queries to sort, and manage data quickly and with great flexibility. Now, Access is a relational database, and that means it uses the same architecture as other more powerful database software like Oracle and Microsoft's SQL Server. So, to kind of summarize, databases play a crucial role in many aspects of modern life, and there's a lot of jobs out there that involve databases. We use databases every day, often without realizing it. So here's a few examples of that. Online shopping. Databases store product information, customer data, and order histories so stores can manage inventory, process orders, and personalize our shopping experience. In education, student records, course registrations, grades are managed through educational databases, facilitating smooth operations in schools and universities. Healthcare, medical records, patient histories, appointment schedules, prescription data are all managed through databases, helping hospitals to deliver timely and accurate care. This has eliminated one of the most frequent causes of mistakes in the past, which was caused by bad handwriting, where patients would receive the wrong prescription because pharmacists couldn't read accurately what the doctors had written on the prescription form. So, to get into our project, let's go ahead and take a look at the project that we're going to complete, which I have already opened for you guys, and I have it right here. Let me bring it over. This is what we're going to create, and so take a moment to look at my screen while I explain a few things to you, and we'll start the project shortly. In this project, we're working for an organization called the American River Cycling Club, and we're going to begin creating a database to keep track of the club's members. Now, if we were going to build a database from scratch, we would begin by listing all the entities that we need to keep track of. So let me tell you about this word entity. An entity really is just anything where we need to keep track of data about that particular thing. Now, if you're an English major or you study languages, you can think of an entity as a noun, which means it's a person, place, or thing. For example, in a school database, entities might include students, teachers, classes, and professors. Each entity in our database would be represented by a table, and the tables would be joined together with linkages called relationships. So, for example, students would have a link to classes because they enroll in classes. Now, in today's assignment, we only have one entity, members of the club, so we're going to create a database with just one table. Now, within this table, we're going to have what are called records, and so each line or each row in the database represents one club member, and that member has certain bits of information, certain pieces of data stored about them. So for example, here, let's just take a look at member number 2, Megan Walters. She has an address of 7105 High Street in Folsom, California. Notice how the data is broken down into little pieces like a first name and a last name. These little elements of data are called fields. And a field is usually text, but it could also be something like a number, a date, a currency, or other types of data. So for example, if I click on this field here for her last name, we can see on the Table Fields tab that this data type is short text. When we create a table, we need to specify for each data element, each field like first name, last name, address, what kind of data it is so that the database, in this case Access, knows how to manage it. Let me click on this button with a triangle and a ruler on it. This is the View menu, and it's going to give us just a different way of looking at this same table here. We can see in this view that we have a first name field, for example, and it's a short text field. The last name field is short text. The address is short text. Even the zip code is short text, because when we're creating a table and we are deciding what elements, what ingredients of data we need, unless we need to do mathematics with something, we usually store it as text because the zip code is usually printed as part of an address. The email address, we can see here what type of data it is. It says it's a hyperlink, and that means that it's going to be clickable. So in this case, we'll have an email address. Looking at our database on the screen, we could click it and send an email to one of our members. But everything else is short text except for this auto number field here, which is the member ID field. In our club, we give every member a unique member ID number. Just like at school, you have a student ID number, and when you pay taxes, you have a Social Security number. We need to have some kind of unique value that is never shared between two people so that we can always tell one person from another, even if they have maybe the same first and last name. So in databases, you typically need to have something called a key field. In our case here, we're going to have a key field called member ID. It will have a little key symbol next to it, and it's going to be an auto number field. We'll talk more about key fields in the next chapter and how we use them. Finally, let me just show you what other types of data are available to us by using this drop-down menu. In addition to auto number and short text, we have long text. Short text can be up to 255 characters, and that's usually plenty. A long text could be something like a product description or a biography of somebody. That would be paragraphs long. Numbers of various types, we can do mathematics with them. Dates and times, we can organize things from oldest to newest, search for something that occurs between two different dates. A hyperlink is something clickable. An attachment would be some type of external file that we could link to. In this class, we are going to use short text, auto number, date and time, and a few others. But that just shows you the different types of data that Access understands, and it has built into it the ability to search, sort, filter, and manipulate these different types of data. So that's what fields are all about. A field name and a data type tells Access how to manage it. Now we're going to type some stuff for this database here. We're going to type the first few people. Geneva, Megan, Ryan are all going to have their names typed. And you want to type every piece of information that we put into this project accurately according to the instructions, because any typos will result in points being deducted. I'll remind you of that as we get into it. And so I think, in fact, let's just go ahead and get into it right now. I'll close Access here. I'm looking at the assignment page. I've already downloaded my start file and my resources file. So what I'll do right now is I'll see where I have that window and just bring it over here. The resources file, go ahead and download that and keep it handy, because we'll need that later. It's actually an Excel spreadsheet, and I'll show it to you right now. I'm going to open it in Excel, and I'm not going to make any kind of changes to it. I will expand it a little bit here. What you can see here is that we have a first name, a last name, an address, city, state, zip code, an email address, and a phone number. A lot of times when you're working with a database, you've already got information that you need to put into your database, you've already got that information on your computer. Maybe you got it from the internet or somebody sent you a file like this one. We're going to see how to import that data into Access so we don't have to retype it. So I'll go ahead and close that window, and I'll go ahead now and I will open my Access file, and we're going to see, I think, that we do have a bit of a problem with this file. The first thing that you'll notice is that we have something here that looks kind of dangerous. It says security risk. Microsoft has blocked macros from running because the source of this file is untrusted. What that means is that Windows realizes that we got this file from the internet, and it's told that to Access, and so Access is refusing to open this file. Let me just go ahead and close Access right now, and I'll go back to look at this icon here of my downloaded file. The reason for this is not because this particular file is dangerous, but because Access files can contain a programming code. That's a feature that they have. And so that does provide the opportunity for some malicious person to send you a virus that's never been detected before, and it wouldn't be recognized by your virus scanner. Now, that's the reason that we should only open Access files from people and sources that we trust. And in this case, we can trust it because it's coming from McGraw-Hill. So what we can do is right-click on this icon right here, and from the pop-up menu, choose the word Properties. When you click on Properties, you're going to get this little window popping open. Make sure that you're looking at the General tab. And at the bottom, it says under Security, this file came from another computer and might be blocked to help protect this computer. What you can do here is just click Unblock and click OK, and now you'll be able to open that file. You'll need to do this every time you download an Access file from SIMnet. We could disable the security feature, but it's there for a reason. So we're just going to, on a case-by-case basis, always unblock these files because we do know that they're safe. Let me go ahead and open the file again. And now what we're going to see is the more familiar security warning, the yellow stripe, and so we need to enable content. Let's take a look at our instructions now, and we'll see exactly what we need to do next. We've downloaded the file. We have unblocked it. We don't need to rename it. Click the Table button on the Create tab to create a new table, and it's going to open in Datasheet view. So let's get into Access and do that right now. To do this, we need to go to the Create tab in Access, and we're going to be returning to this tab quite a bit in the weeks ahead because we will be creating queries, forms, and reports in future weeks. But today, we're going to create just one table. So we're going to be looking in the Tables area. And I'll put a slide on the screen that will show you more information about the different kinds of objects that we can create in Access: tables, queries, forms, and reports. Whenever we create an object, it's going to appear here on the left in the Objects panel. Let's click right now on the Table button. It creates a new table. You can see it's called Table 1. That's a temporary name. It's in our Objects panel. It's labeled also here on the tab. And it's opened in what's called Datasheet view, which looks a little bit like a spreadsheet. There's another view we can use to modify and build a table, and that is called Design view. We will take a look at that shortly. But here in the Datasheet view, it looks a little bit like a spreadsheet, and eventually we'll be able to see not just our field headings, like you can see ID there is created automatically for us. We will see not only those headings, but also our data. Let's take a look at the ID field. I'm going to click it. It is an auto number field, which means that Access is going to keep track of this for us automatically and give each new record, in this case, each member of the cycling club, a serial number, basically, an ID number starting with 1, going to 2, 3, 4, etc. Kind of like a student ID at a college. When we have a table, every record, everything in the table, every person in the table needs to have a unique ID. People, for example, can have the same identical first and last name. And so usually when there's people involved, you have a unique number like a driver's license number, a student ID number, a medical record number, a social security number. For objects, you can have things like a serial number, a product ID, and things like that. So whenever there's a table, there's going to be what's called a primary key, and each record has to have a unique primary key. They can never be duplicated. Okay, so that is the auto number field. Access will take care of these numbers for us automatically. Let's go back to our instructions. and take a look at the next step. Edit the default primary key and add new fields to the table. We're going to rename our primary key from the word ID to member ID, and I can copy this, and you can do that if you want to as well. Just make sure if you choose to copy anything in this assignment that you only copy the red text, no extra spaces or punctuation or anything else. We're going to replace that name, and then we're going to hit enter. I'll go ahead and double click on the word ID. That gets me into editing mode. I will type, or in this case, paste member ID. And then I'll hit enter, and that moves me to the next column. And you can see it highlights the next column, which is currently empty. It says click to add. I need to choose a type of data that's going to be stored in this field. Now, we're going to be using mostly short text, with just one exception in this assignment. And short text is the most common and popular field type in Access because it can hold up to 255 characters, which is good for things like names, addresses, brief product descriptions, and things like that. You can see in this list here, and I will put up a slide that you can pause and read if you want to, a list of other data types, and I'll give you a slide that shows some information about the most popular ones. We're not going to be using all of these, but we have different types of data that Access knows how to understand and manipulate. So with text, it can search text for a particular word or phrase. It can alphabetize text. Numbers, it can do mathematical operations on those. Currency, it knows it's a monetary value and should probably have 2 places after the decimal. A date and time, or for dates and times from the year 100 to 9999, I think. So a very broad range there. Yes and no is like a true false. There's some others as well. Long text is sometimes used fairly often. I don't think we're going to need it, but it would be good for a long piece of text like a product description or a personal biography or something like that. Let's just click short text here. And what are we going to call this field here? My instructions say that we're going to put this name as first name. And so I will type first name. Now notice that we are not using any spaces. Capitalize each word, but run them together with no spaces. This is called camel case. It's supposed to be like the humps of a camel with the capital letters. And so the first field that we're going to be adding after member ID is first name. Type it like I've done right there. Click to add, or else use the enter key. Choose short text for the next field, which I'm pretty sure is going to be last name, with no spaces. Let's go back and take a look at our instructions here, and we could probably check off a couple of things. We double-clicked the ID field. We named it member ID. We've created the first name field. We've also started creating the last name field, and we're going to add the remaining fields from this chart here. And the first one is going to be address, followed by city, state, zip. Notice that zip code is 2 words together, and that ZIP is all capital letters. Email address, camel case, cell phone number. Notice that everything is short text except for email address. We're going to be using a hyperlink so that this email address would be clickable and we could then send an email from our designated email program. Okay, let's go back to Access and do some of this stuff, starting with the word address. That's going to be a short text, and it's going to say address. I'll go ahead and hit the enter key to continue, and we will do city, state, zip code, etc. You can use your arrow keys to move up and down this list, so you can kind of do this by using the keyboard. City, state, ZIP code, zip code, email address, and finally, cell phone number. All right, enter. Once you've done this, go ahead and click back to the first name field. That's a good place to park so we don't accidentally create a new field here at the end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just resize each one of these fields to give me enough room to type, because we are going to be adding some text here. And so we're going to stretch these columns by putting our mouse on the line between the 2 labels and just making them big enough to give us space to do our typing easily. And we can adjust the width of these columns at any time. Let me go back and just make sure I've done everything correctly. We added the remaining fields to the table: address, city, state, zip code, email address, and cell phone number. Save the table and call it members. So that's going to be the name of this table here. I'll go ahead and copy that just to be lazy. And going back to Access here, we're going to click on the little save button here, or you can use Control key S if you want to use the keyboard shortcut. When you do that, you will get a window popping up that says Save As. Notice this is a tiny window for saving something, and we don't get to choose where to save it. We're not going to choose to save it in our Documents folder or anyplace else because we're not creating a new file in the computer. We're creating a new object inside of our Access database. This has got a temporary name, Table1. When I type members and click OK, that's going to then put the now saved name in the objects collection and on the tab here. So that has now been saved. I think we're about ready to start entering some data. Let's take a look at our instructions here. We're not going to enter data just yet. We're going to edit field properties of the members table. So it says click the member ID field name, click the name and caption button, and type member space ID in the caption property. Okay, let me explain to you what's going on with that. If I click on member ID here, there's a button on the ribbon that says name and caption. Let's click on that and bring up this little box here. It says the name of the field is member ID, and I mentioned that has no spaces. The reason that we don't use spaces when we name a field is because eventually these field names are going to be used in programming code. The language is structured query language, or SQL, or SQL. All forms of pronunciation are correct. And when you're typing in computer code, you have a variable name. You don't want to have a space in it. Now, I think with SQL, you actually can get around that by using, I think, brackets to encapsulate a field name, but it just adds a lot of hassle and complexity when you're typing your code. So we're not going to have any spaces. Now, we're not actually going to be typing code. Access is going to generate our SQL code behind the scenes when we make queries. But let's go ahead and call this caption member ID. What's the difference? Well, there's a space here in the caption for member ID. Captions are used in Access when we're building forms and reports and things like that, where we want to label something. It will automatically use the caption to do that if there is a caption instead of using the name. And so we can give a more friendly, user-friendly, human-friendly kind of name for our fields here whenever we have this kind of camel case form of naming things. Click OK, and we're going to now switch back to our instructions, where we're going to see that we're going to do the same thing for a few of these other fields, and we are also going to change the length of these fields whenever we have a short text. So we're going to change the first name caption to first space name and make the field length, the field size, 20 characters long. Let's get to Access and I'll explain what we're going to do. Click on first name, and first of all, click the name and caption button. In caption here, go ahead and type first space name. Because it's pretty self-explanatory, we're not going to worry about any additional descriptions, but if we worked with a team and we had a more complicated database, we could add a description here to make this database have good internal documentation. Let me click OK, and we're going to have a field size of 20, and that's going to be this little property right here where it says field size. Change this number from 255 to 20. Now, I think I mentioned before that a short text can hold up to 250 characters. We're going to cut this off and limit that at 20 characters. We've decided that in our database, in our Bicycle Club, nobody has a first name longer than 20 characters. And so for a couple of reasons, it's kind of good database design to limit the length of a field to something reasonable, something big enough for the largest scenario that you might encounter, but not excessively large. Why is that? Well, one reason is that theoretically it could, if the database is big enough, improve performance with memory allocation by not having to allocate, extra space for a bunch of blanks for your fields. It also helps to support what's called data integrity, which is that you don't want garbage data to get into your database by mistake. And so if you allowed somebody to put in an excessive number of characters and the cat walked across the keyboard, you might get a lot of junk into the field there. And when you're designing your forms and reports, you're going to give a certain amount of space to each field. And if you know that it only has to ever display 20 characters, it lets you set that field width to a reasonable amount. Okay, those are just some of the reasons why we might specify field lengths. It's good design practice. Let's go back to our instructions and see what's going on. It says that we're going to do this to first name. It's going to be 20 characters long. And we're going to use this little chart here to do the same thing for the remaining fields in the database. We're going to change the caption for last name to last space name and make it 25 characters long. I am going to go back to Access and I am going to switch my view here. I told you there are two ways to view and work with your table, and we're currently in datasheet view. I'm going to go to the corner here, and there's a button with a ruler and a triangle, and it says view. I'm going to click that, and it's going to switch me to the other view. This is called design view. It's the same table, but just a different way of looking at it. Design view doesn't show you the data that you've got in your table, which we don't have yet anyway, but it shows you all the structure of your table, design view. And I prefer to work with design view for doing the type of things that we're going to do right now. When you're working with design view, you have a field selected at the top, member ID is selected. It has a gold box next to it, or a yellow highlight box next to it. Keep track of which one of these fields has that yellow highlight, because that's the one that's active, and you can look down below for its properties. And so you can see if we have member ID highlighted here and we look down at the caption below, it says member space ID. We did that. Click on first name and we can see the field size should be 20 and it should have a caption of first name. Last name, click on that one. We're going to change the field size to 25. Now, to do this, I hit on the keyboard, the very top row, F6. You can also use your mouse and click down here, but F6 teleports you to the field size down below, and I'm going to type 25. I'm going to use my keyboard's down arrow key 3 times to get to caption, and I will type or paste last name. Now that I've done that, I'll go with the mouse and click on address. Make sure the yellow highlight, the gold highlight, is on address. On the keyboard, hit the key labeled F6, or you can click down below to field size. Address is going to be up to 45 characters long, so type 45 there. We don't need to worry about a caption. Click on city. Make sure that's what you've selected. Hit F6, and city is going to be 25 characters. Click on state. Make sure that's what you have selected. Hit F6, and state will be a 2-character abbreviation. So we're going to use CA instead of California. Click on zip code. Zip code is going to be a maximum length of 5. So hit F6 and type in 5. We're not going to worry about the extended 4 digits for a +4 zip code, even though we probably should if we're going to be doing any bulk mailing. Let's go ahead and click on email address. And notice that I've made a mistake. This should be not a short text, but a hyperlink. So I can change that right now. And please check yours to see if I led you astray here. This should be a hyperlink. So before we do anything else, change that to hyperlink. It also changes the properties down below. And with a hyperlink, we don't have a field length because the possible length of a hyperlink is specified by the internet authorities that set the definitions of all these different internet things. So there's no length to worry about, but we will just caption it with the short caption email. Email, capital E, no hyphen. And then finally, cell phone number. Let's click on that. Let's hit F6 to go down to our field size and set that to 12. And we're going to just call this as a caption, cell space phone. There we go. So it's very important for this part of the project to be done accurately. So let me step you through what I've done. I'll quality check my work and we can check yours while I do that with you. Let's click on member ID. Check the spelling, member ID. Any misspellings here will not only be graded incorrect, we'll lose points, but it will interfere with the import that we're going to do in just a moment. Member ID, it should be a auto number type of field. Click on first name, check the spelling, look below, field size 20, caption first name. Click on last name, field size 25, caption last name. Click on address, field length 45, no caption. Click on city. City should be 25 in length, no caption. State, click on state. It should be 2 in length for the field size. Click on zip code. It should be 5 in length for the field size. And the caption, which I did not do, should be capital letters ZIP. So let me fix that. Click on email address. It should say email for the caption, and there's no length. Cell phone number, finally, should be 12 characters long, and it should say cell phone. Okay? So with that all checked, let's go ahead and click the Save button to save our work. Let's go back to our instructions and check off the fact that we've typed all the stuff in this table. Click the Save button to save changes to the table, and it says that we are now ready to enter data into the database. So let's go ahead and get ready to do that. Let's check this, and we're going to start by typing in the first person, the first member of the Bicycle Club. Her name is Geneva Lingle. She lives at 1850 Stone Ridge Court in Cameron Park, California. There's the information that we need to type. Let's go back to Access here, and we're going to there it is. We're going to switch to datasheet view. So let me go ahead and maximize access again. We're going to switch to datasheet view. So let me click on the view button here, and it takes us back to datasheet view, and you can see that we're ready to enter data. I'm going to use the tab key to jump from field to field. So I'm currently in the member ID column. That is automatic, so I'll hit tab, type Geneva, Geneva, tab Lingle, Lingle. Her address is 1850 Stone Ridge Court. The city that she lives in is, did I say Cameron Park? California. And her zip code is going to be 95682. Her email address is glingle@gmail.com. Her cell phone number, we're going to type it, including the dashes, 780-886-6625. Okay, so there we have Geneva Lingle. She's entered into the database. If we now hit enter, we'll be on a new line, and we can start to enter the next person. And that person is going to be Megan Walters. So let's go ahead and just check off all the things that we've done here. And the next 3 people are going to be entered from this table right here. And like I mentioned before, we can always select the text and copy it. Just make sure you don't get anything extra when you do that. I'm going to speed up this part of the video, I think, so you guys can hit pause, type at your own pace, check everything that you type carefully, and I'll meet you again at step 5. All right, so that's what I've typed, and you can pause the video if you want to check out what I've typed on my screen. I recommend that you use the instructions in your online project to verify that you've typed everything correctly. All right, let's keep going here and take a look at what they want us to do next in the instructions. They want us to change the layout of the members table. So what is that going to involve? Well, what they want us to learn is that we can rearrange things in table view to be able to view things better. Sometimes you'll have a lot of fields to try to fit onto your screen. And so what I like to do is I like to just double tap the line separating each one of these columns, and that will auto size it just enough to show you all the contents of each field. Now, we especially want to do that to the state column, I believe, and we're going to change the width of the zip column as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let's select the zip column, and what they want us to do is to use the field width property to set the column width to 7. So let's go ahead and do that. If I right-click on zip right where it has the column heading, I can choose field width from the pop-up menu, and I'm going to type the number 7 there. That's going to give me enough space to be able to see everything clearly. They also want us to use center alignment, which is over here, and it's the familiar center alignment button that we've used before. Click it one time, make sure that everything in that column is centered. Then make sure that you double tap the line separating zip from state, and also use center alignment on the state column as well. And so I think that's going to complete these modifications here. Center alignment, select state, double tap it to resize it, use center alignment, and then finally click the alternate row color drop-down list, and I'll show that to you in a second. And we're going to choose blue-gray text to lighter 80% as the stripe color. Notice that we have striping on alternate rows to help us read this better. Let's make that a little bit more prominent by clicking on this button here, and from the drop-down button, let's, I think, choose this one, which is going to be blue-gray text to lighter 80%, and that gives us a more prominent stripe. Let's go back to the instructions and check off that. Use Control S to save your work, and then they want us to close the members table, and that is very important. We're going to click this little X on the tab with the word members on it, and that gives us a totally blank workspace. And so we need to have that for the next step because we're going to import data from the resource file. So if you haven't downloaded that resource file yet, go to the top of the instructions page and download the resources file with this link, and it's going to place a Excel spreadsheet in the same folder as you have your downloads. And so I'll show that to you right now. Here's mine. I've already downloaded it. It's called members data. A members data file is what it's called, -01. So let me go to Access, and we're going to import that. Now, it's only going to work if you have closed the members table. It can't add anything to that members table while the table's open, so make sure you have an empty workspace. Go to the External Data tab, click on New Data Source. On the From File option, choose Excel Spreadsheet. So there it is right there. Click on this, and it's going to give you a place to find that spreadsheet. So before you do anything else, go ahead and click this circle here, append a copy of the records to the table members. We only have one table, so that's the only table we can choose here. We want to add this to the existing table, not create a new table. Okay, so it's easy to skip this step. Let's do it right now. And then we're going to navigate using the Browse button to the folder where we have our downloads. And so here we can see the members data file. It's only going to be showing us Excel files because we've chosen to import an Excel file, so it's filtering out anything else you may have in your download folder. I'm going to click on the members data file here, and I'm going to click on Open, and what it does is it loads that path and file name into this Browse field right here. We can now click OK, and it's going to take a look at that file and show us a preview. And it's got a bunch of columns, first name, last name, and these need to correspond to the columns that we've made in our database. Let's click Next. We're going to import it to the members table. Do not check that box. Click Finish, and you will not need to save any import steps, so you can click the Close button. And if nothing happens at this point, it means that you have done this correctly. So let me go ahead and show you how you can verify that this has worked for you. If you open the members table, you're going to have a total of 14 records because it's brought in everybody from that existing spreadsheet. Now, you may have had a problem here. This is the most common place to have some kind of a glitch or a problem. Let me take a moment to talk about that. Okay, what I've done here is I have modified my database to include something that's going to cause a problem here. Now, if yours worked properly, if you had a good result when you imported those 10 records and you have 14 records, this does not apply to you. But if you got an error message when you tried to import those records, this may very well help you solve that problem. I'm going to address the most common problem that people have. If yours worked well, if you imported 10 records and you now have 14 records in your database, you can skip over this next minute or two because you don't need to worry about fixing anything. But if you had a problem, here's what it might have looked like. I'm going to go to external data. I've modified this file here to create a problem for me. I'm going to select new data source from file, Excel. I'm going to make sure, before I forget, to choose to append a copy of the records to my members table. I'm going to browse to my downloads folder here, and there's the file I want to import. I'll click Open. I'll click OK. I'll take a look at the contents of the file. They look good. I'll hit Next. I'll hit Finish. And I get a message that tells me there's a problem. It says the field first name doesn't exist in the destination table members. I'm going to click OK, and I need to cancel this import here and come back to it later. Now, I'm going to right-click on my members table and open it in Design View. I like to do this in Design View. And what you can see is that I've got a couple of mistakes here. First of all, the first name field, it should just be first name. Mine says first name LMNOP. So I'm going to fix that, okay? While you're fixing this, make sure that you check everything else because I've got actually more than one mistake here, but you only get one error message at a time. So assuming that I fixed this, I can save this table and close it. I need to make sure that the table is not open to now import. I'll try this process again. New data source from file Excel. Choose that second circle there, append a copy to the members table, browse, find the members data file, open it, look at it, go to next, go to finish, and I get another message. This time it's complaining about the field last name. Okay, I fixed first name, but now it says last name is not working. I've got to close this, and as many mistakes as you have, you'll be given error messages, but only one at a time. So my recommendation is, again, right-click on the members table in the Objects panel, choose Design View, and carefully check all of the field names and make sure that they are correct, okay? These happen to be correct now, so you can look at my screen and compare it to yours and make sure that your field names are correct too. Don't have any spaces between any words, and check all of your spelling. So if you had a problem with your import, that may solve it. The other problem that people have is they do this. I'll go ahead and close and save the table. The import should work fine now, but the other problem that people have is they go to external data, new data source from file, Excel. They browse and they find the file that we're looking for, but they forget to click the circle for append a copy. And so what happens is they import the source data into a new table. I'll click OK, I'll click Finish, and I will go ahead and not save steps. And so I've got here a couple of new tables here, Sheet 1 and import errors. Import errors, it says that there's a type conversion. I'm not going to worry about that. But Sheet 1, it's made a whole new sheet with 10 names in it. I don't want either one of these worksheets here. I want to right-click on this one and choose to delete it. Yes, I want to delete that, and I want to right-click on this one and choose to delete it. And then I can go back to my new data source and start the import process again, making sure I don't have anything open here. From File, Excel, choose the second circle, append a copy, click OK, then browse, find your data file, click OK, look at it, click Next, click Finish, and do not save the import steps. And at that point, you should have successfully imported the new records into your table. Now, because I did this, I then erased the new records and did it again. Notice that my member ID numbers go from 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 15. That's totally okay. Don't ever worry about what these numbers are. Remember, Access makes these numbers for you, and you can't change any of them. So whatever they are, whatever Access decides they should be is fine. But anyway, that looks like a successful import now. So I think I can go back to the instructions and I can check off this step here for importing these new records here, okay? Import data, we did all of these steps here. New data source, browse, find the file, open, append, very important. And did all these steps here, finish and close. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we open the table and take a look at it. Now, what I've done is I have created a copy with a mistake in it as a demonstration. I'm going to delete that now. We don't need it. I'm going to go back to the file that we're looking at. This is my correct file. Let's go ahead and look at the members table together. We should have 14 records. They should look about like this. At this point, the instructions are going to tell you to close the table. This is step 8, or to open the table, and in step 8 it says to hide the state field, sort the members table. We're going to start skipping some steps here, okay? We're going to skip step 8. We're going to skip step 9. These steps don't get graded, and they can actually cause problems. I'm not going to talk about the problems that have happened with doing this lesson in the past, but step 10, skip it. Step 11, skip it. Skip 12. It says close the members table by clicking X. Select No in the dialog box. Do not save any of the work that you've just done. So what's happening here, guys, is from step number 7 to step number 12, you're supposed to do a bunch of stuff and not save it. If you do save it, it could cause a hassle for you. It's not the end of the world, but what I'm going to do is I'll demonstrate some of this stuff at the end of the assignment after we've graded it. If you want to stick around at the end of the video and follow along, you can. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to now skip to step 12, which says review the members table. And again, it should look like this. Let's just say that we've reviewed it. Close the table by clicking the X in the tab. I'll do that. We're going to now do some properties for the table. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this first set of red text here. So I've got that handy for me. And in the database, we want to click the File tab and go to Info on the left side of the screen. And then on the right side of the screen, click this hyperlink that says View and Edit Database Properties. It's going to open up a little dialog box that looks like this. Erase the title that's there and put in American River members. Hit the tab key twice, delete whatever you have for the author's name, and put in Taylor Mathos. That's going to be Taylor Mathos, Mathos. Make sure you spell everything correctly on this. Hit tab 2 more times and type ARCC for American River Cycling Club. Click OK. Go back to your database there. And I believe that is the last thing that we need to do. It says click on OK to save the changes. And then we should be ready to upload the file. So I'll check off these little boxes here. And it says close the database by clicking the X in the right-hand corner of the application window. That's actually a good idea to do this when you're saving your Access database and uploading it. I'll go ahead and close my Access database. And I'm going to go to the top of my instructions page here and upload my file. I'll navigate. I'll navigate to my downloads folder, click on the file I want to upload, and I'll send it up to the cloud. Let's go ahead and submit that file for grading. And the result is, hopefully, a good one. 100%. So skipping all those steps doesn't hurt our score in any way. I was able to get 100%. The most common problem people have in not getting 100% is something to do with typing, because there's a lot of typing and keyboarding in this assignment. So check your typing carefully. Now, If you want to see all those steps that we skipped, I'll go back and I'll show you what they wanted you to know about, and I'll give you the knowledge, and you can watch the video if you choose to do so. I'm going to click the title of the assignment to go back to the instructions, and I'm going to go to my Downloads folder, and I'm going to open up the file again, and I'm going to open up my members table. Okay. What they want you to do, just to make a long bunch of steps short, is they want you to understand that if you have skills with Excel, you can apply some of those to working with your data tables. Now, I'm actually not a fan of this, but it's something that Microsoft includes on their Access certification exams. And our curriculum is designed so that if you do this curriculum, you could go take one of Microsoft's Office certification exams and be prepared for it. So that's good. But frankly, if you have a database, what you're going to find is that when you want to get different views of your data, you want to look at just some of the data, not all of it, or you want to find something, you're going to use queries. And when you want to modify your data, you're going to use forms. And if you want to see a particular view of data, you can also use a report built from a query. We're going to learn about those in upcoming assignments. And so once you know that stuff, you probably don't want to take your database table, open it up like a giant spreadsheet, and just start clicking on stuff to type things. The reason for that is that when you have your table open, you're kind of in God mode. There's nothing to protect the data from any kind of mistakes you make. So if you click in your table and then your cat walks across the keyboard while you're not looking, it's going to put data somewhere in your database and it's going to immediately save it. And so finding it and doing an undo is not always possible. Okay, but for convenience sake, there are a bunch of things that you can do in table view similar to what you can do with a table in Excel. Let me go ahead and go to the instructions here. And I think we started skipping some steps right here around step 8. Hide the state field. Okay. So I'm going to go and I'm going to right click on state. Because the state is always California, if we had a small monitor and we wanted to fit more things on our screen, we could hide the state field so we didn't have to look at it. I'm going to find hide field here and I'm going to hide that. Okay. So we can do that. Sort the members table. Let's find the city field and sort that from A to Z. So let's go ahead and cluster our members according to the city where they live. Now, if you look at something in table view, just by the way, it's always going to be in whatever order the entries were put into the table. So it's kind of like doing a bunch of dishes at the kitchen sink. You do the dish, you wash it, you rinse it, you dry it off, you put it on the stack. And however you stack those dishes is the order that they're going to be in. Normally, when we look at our data, we like it to be organized in a way that's more useful to us, like alphabetical or something like that. In this case, we can do alphabetical by city. Because this is a text field, Access knows how to do operations with text, like making things alphabetical. And so now we can sort that by different cities. If it is something that's like a number, it can look for numbers that are equal to something or less than or greater than. It can do a number of different type of operations with numbers. Let's see what else they want us to do. Sort the members table and then remove the sort and move the zip column. Okay, well, let's remove the sort. How do you do that? Well, if you've got your table fields tab here, you can see that there's a little arrow right there that tells you that you've got a sort applied to it. If you see the little arrow right there, you can click on this and you can choose to unsort. No, let's see. Let's go to maybe it's on the Home tab. There's a button, there we go, that tells us we have an ascending sort applied to this table. We can click here to remove that sort, and it restores the data back to the original order. You can see that because it's in the order of the member IDs now. They want us to see that we can move the zip code field and put it to the left of the last name field. I'm not sure why we do that, but if we put our mouse here, we get a down pointing arrow to select the entire column. We can then go ahead and kind of move the arrow around until we get this a four-way arrow, and then we can start to click and pull and drop that zip code anywhere we want to, and it'll move that column around. Okay. And after that, they want us to click the ascending button to display things in zip code order. Let's click A to Z. And so now they're organized according to zip code. Could be useful if you're going to do a bulk mailing and you want to pre-sort your labels. Let's go ahead and remove that sort and then move the zip column back to where it should be. So let's go ahead and remove the sort and pick up this column here and put it back after the city column. What else can we do? Well, this one's actually kind of useful. Let's find all the people in the 916 area code by searching the cell phone number column. Now, cell phone numbers are numbers, but we store them as text, and here's one good reason why. If we want to find everybody in a certain area code, we can click here and go to text filters and choose begins with and type 916, and it will then show us only those people who have an area code. In other words, the first three digits of their phone number is equal to 916. So that hides the things we don't want to see. It's non-destructive, and we can hit toggle filter anytime to get everything restored back the way it was. Let's do one more, and that is to go to our email column here, and we're going to do a text search. Let's go to email, click the triangle for the drop-down arrow. Under text filters, we're going to search for contains and type the word Gmail, and I'll hit enter, and it now finds only the people who have the word Gmail in their email address. So we've got a list of the people who use Gmail as their email account. I'll go ahead and toggle the filter here to turn that off. And I'll give you one more thing that you can do here as a bonus. If you've watched the video this far, for no extra charge, I'll show you something that you can do if you want to use Access and you want to pull out a little bit of data and send it to somebody in an email or a document. I'm going to say, let's find only the people who live, let's say, in Roseville. I'm going to go to the City tab, the City menu, and I'll uncheck everything. And what did I say? Roseville? I'm going to check only Roseville. I'm going to click OK. I've got a list of people here. What I'll do is I'll click in the corner of the table, and then that selects the entire table. I'll click on copy. I'll go over to Microsoft Word here, and I'll, on the Home tab, click on paste. And it pastes a table of just the people that I've got on the screen here, copying it out of Access. I can then toggle that filter to restore everything back the way it was. So you can get a quick answer to a question. Who lives in Roseville? You can take the results of that and paste it into an email or a Word document. So that's kind of a handy thing that you can do. Those were the things that they wanted us to do that I told you to skip over. So now you've got the knowledge. You can use your database now that you've got it graded successfully and got your points. You can play around with that and explore the different things that you can do. Hey, if you're watching the video now, thanks for watching it and watching it all the way to the end. I hope it was useful to you and that you learned some useful things. If you have any questions, contact your instructor, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.